Hello everyone and welcome to the second part of this presentation, the Christmas story in Greek and Latin from the Gospel according to Luke. My name is Christopher Ehlers. This presentation translates and compares the Greek and Latin versions of the second chapter of Luke. The first presentation covered the first and second verses. This presentation covers the third verse. In the third verse, we see the migration of people back to their home villages in response to the decree of Caesar Augustus. Luke tells us that all went to be registered, each to his own city. We can break up this verse into two clauses. The first clause is all went to be registered. In Greek, this is kai eporeuanta pantes apagraphisthai. In Latin, this is et ibant omnes ut profiterentur. In the first clause, note the use of the first Greek word kai, which means and. Although most frequently translated into English as and, it can also mean also or even. It is used liberally in Greek to move the discourse along. In modern English, we have our own functional equivalents, like the words so and well. The Latin equivalent for the word and is et. The subject of the first clause is the substantive adjective all, which stands alone as a noun. In Greek, this is the plural form pantes, which reminds us of English words like pandemic and Pan-American. In Latin, this is the plural form omnes, which reminds us of words like omnipresent and omnipotent. Calling this a substantive adjective is just a fancy way of saying that these languages sometimes use adjectives as nouns. We also do this in English when we say only the strong survive. Although there is no other subject mentioned, we can interpret the Greek word pantes and the Latin word omnes to mean all the people. With respect to the main verb in the first clause, went, both languages use the third person plural imperfect form of the verb to go. The Greek uses eporeuanta, which is derived from the present verb poreuomai, meaning I go, with the characteristic epsilon prefix as an indicator of the imperfect tense. The Latin uses ebant, which is derived from the present verb eo, meaning I go, with the characteristic ba infix as an indicator for the imperfect tense. In each language, the purpose of the action of going is described by a second verb. The Greek uses the passive infinitive apagraphisthai, a word that we already saw in the first verse. As in the first verse, the Latin instead uses a purpose clause, this time with the third person plural subjunctive form ut profiterentur, meaning so that they may profess. This verb comes from the present verb profiteor, meaning I confess. It is a deponent verb having a passive form but an active meaning. The second clause of the verse can be translated as each one to his own city, with the word for city being placed in the accusative case. In Greek, this is hekastos eistain heau tu pollen, and in Latin this is singuli in suamque vitatum. As in the first clause, each language uses a substantive adjective as a subject of this clause. The Greek substantive adjective is hekastos, the masculine form of the Greek adjective meaning each, singular in number, while the Latin also uses the masculine form of the Latin adjective each, singuli. It is plural rather than singular in number. The reason is that here the Latin form is emphasizing the collective nature of the concept of each. In both languages, the destination is expressed by a prepositional phrase with the object in the accusative case. In Greek, this is eistain heau tu pollen, and in Latin this is in suam civitatem. In both languages, we use the accusative case for motion towards some place or something. The Greek word corresponding to the English preposition into is eis. The Latin equivalent is the word in, which looks like our English word in, but which has a different meaning here. The Latin word in is used like the English preposition in when the following noun is in the ablative case. But here it means into because it is followed by a noun in the accusative case, conveying the sense of motion toward some place. The noun that is the object of the prepositional phrase is the word for city. In Greek, this is tein pollen, and in Latin, this is civitatem. As we have seen before, here the Greek is using a definite article before the noun, but the Latin is not. Here, tein is the accusative form of the feminine nominative he. The Greek accusative form pollen, meaning city, comes from the feminine nominative polis, which gives us the English words politics, metropolis, and cosmopolitan. The Latin accusative form civitatem comes from the feminine nominative civitas, which gives us the English words civics and civil. To which city did each person go? The Greek uses a possessive adjective meaning his, heiau to, a form in the genitive case which derives from the nominative heiautos, which assumes the masculine gender and singular number of the subject of the clause, here understood to be each person. By convention, this is assumed to be masculine. In contrast, in Latin, the possessive adjective suam assumes the feminine gender and singular number of the object of the clause, that is, civitatem or city, rather than the conventional masculine gender of the subject, each person. It also follows the singular number of the object, civitatem, rather than the plural number of the subject, singuli.